Invisible Soldiers podcast. Welcome to the Invisible Soldiers podcast. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Corey.
And after a couple of weeks off, we're back with another great episode. What up, Corey?
What up, Rebecca? How you been?
I'm good. How have you been?
Okay, I'm the reason we haven't had a pod in a couple of weeks. I've been gone. I just celebrated a big birthday, big 5-0, and I had an epic France trip.
Amazing.
Paris, Champagne, Nice, and surrounding areas. It was great.
Fantastic. Happy birthday and welcome back.
Thank you. How have you been?
No complaints. It's quiet at the agency. Everybody's gearing up for the holiday coming up, or they're gearing up for major productions. But, it's been quiet for the last couple of weeks. So I think we are right on time.
Just in time for summer. Well, let's get into the show today. Today we welcome a guest to the pod who I have a lot of respect for, and I'm hoping she can shed light on the industry from a millennial perspective. She currently holds the title Client Partner at Saatchi Dallas. Welcome to the pod, Carissa Conteh. What up?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
it's
joining.
so great to be here.
Yeah.
Hope I can do the millennials proud.
Amazing.
Very cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. So jumping right into Client Partner at Saatchi and Saatchi, as the industry continues to grow and shift, some of the traditional titles are gone. Can you talk to us a little bit in detail about some of the tasks that are associated with Client Partner, what that even means from a day-to-day perspective, and how that fits into the agency's operations?
For sure. Yeah, it is an interesting title. I will say I prefer the OG term of account director, which maybe more people are familiar with. For those who aren't familiar at all or aren't as familiar, the account team is kind of the bridge between the marketing clients and the internal team, which is comprised of, strategy, creative production, business affairs, etc. So it requires some organizational skills, some good communication, collaboration. I think both, to and from the client, to and from the internal team. It's important to be able to navigate both spaces and tailor communication to both sides. So a bit of an art form in that sense. Definitely requires being a team player, working hard. And I think, maybe most importantly is just building relationships and over communication to both the internal team and the client. So I think one thing that helps with that is just being as open as possible. I think that's what clients respect about me, and I respect that about them as well. So that's kind of Client Partner in a nutshell. I work on, a team of several account folks. Usually each team has multiple account folks. So it varies anywhere from maybe 2 to 6 people. And so that's, I think, why that team player mindset and just collaboration is super important.
I love that. Thank you. And, kind of taking a peek at your LinkedIn profile, I noticed you have been with Saatchi for a little while, which is fantastic just because, this industry can sometimes be a bit of a revolving door. I'm going to make a generalization that I'm thinking that this work is gratifying. You must like it. Can you talk to us a little bit about what are the things in your role that keep you doing it and keep wanting to grow?
Yeah, I think, it's 50% role, 50% people. Saatchi has some amazing folks, but we also work with some amazing agency partners, Corey being one of them. And that's kind of how I got here. So I love the role. I'd say it's gratifying, it's satisfying, it's challenging, it's all of those things. But it's really awesome to see a project come from kickoff, infancy, concept through all the way through production and live on TV, or, when you're driving down the highway, seeing a billboard, hearing your work on the radio and knowing all of the hard work that goes into getting something from idea to live. It requires teamwork and communication. And I think that's the part that I love. I love to rally a team. I love to bring the clients in, work hard together, and then seeing that final product, being able to celebrate together. Some projects take up to 18 months from start to finish. Others take 8 weeks. But regardless, it takes so much work to bring everyone together for the common goal on behalf of our clients. So the role is great. for me, it's the people too. I know we'll get into this, but teamwork makes the dream work. That's what I always say. Corey's probably heard it a million times.
A
It's
million.
something that it's something that I really believe, and I try to, encourage and inspire the teams, right? Like we can do anything if we do it together, even when things are challenging. So doing that with good people by your side, it just makes it so much better. So yeah, I love Saatchi. I love the work that we do. I love the people that I get to do it with even more than the work though. That's easy. It's the people for me. The work is cool. It's the people for me though.
I love that. I love that. And thank you for giving us insight into what's happening inside of Saatchi. Can you talk a little bit about client management? So in those long projects, 18 months, how far do you have to go to continue to build those relationships, to please your clients and get a home run?
Are you out golfing?
Ooh, that is not my MO. That, it's funny because we joke about it, but that is still very much happening. There's a little bit of whining and dining, which is always fun. But I think it's really about digging in, having those collaborative conversations when things get difficult. If you're experiencing a delay or a setback, I'll never forget one of the projects that Corey and I worked on together. It was during COVID and we were in the middle of, I think, campaign development, maybe just initial ideas. And we were feeling good about it. Then they moved the campaign up 6 months. And so we were like, oh, you don't want to move it back? You want to move it up? So we had to problem solve and we had to have hard conversations internally as a team. And we had to have hard conversations with our clients. But I feel like that is where we really build those relationships and that trust. I think the trust is key. I think that's why, being open and honest through the whole thing is really important because it builds trust. And eventually, some clients are a little bit tougher than others, but we don't stop trying to build relationships with those clients. We try to bring them along and we appreciate when they bring us along as they're solving problems or thinking about problems that they have to solve. We love when they bring us in and we try to do the same thing. And I think consistency over time really breeds trust. And I think that's how we are successful with our clients. And I think it's why we have such a long-standing relationship with some of our clients.
Yeah. So I want to give you props because I remember first couple of meetings I was in with you. And I was like, okay, who is she? I'm checking you out. Like, I'm listening to what you got to say. You like interjecting. And I'm like, I think after about the second or third meeting, I was like, she's a star. She's going to be a fast riser. Great communication. Everything you said was on point, and you kind of had a level of composure that I don't often see with younger people. So props to you. But I want to know where that comes from. So let's dig into your background a little bit. Where are you from? Small or large family? Where did you study? I want to know all that good stuff.
All the good stuff. Well, I am originally from Arlington, Texas, which I like to say that's where the Cowboys play because that seems to be what we're known for these days. But I grew up in Arlington, about 25 ish minutes from Dallas or so. I have a small family, but several of us are in Texas, so close knit but smaller. I like to say that I didn't even think about college. And that sounds weird to say because both my parents are college educated, but we didn't talk a lot about college. It was never presented to me as an option not to go to college, but it also wasn't a conversation we were having all the time. Like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What are you going to study? I think they just knew I was going to figure it out, maybe. And luckily I did. I ended up going to the University of Texas at Austin. I studied public relations and communication studies. And I wasn't one of those people who changed their major 5 times or, had second thoughts about what I wanted to do. I always knew it was going to involve communication. So I think, going back to what you were saying, Corey, I've studied it.
Hmm.
I've studied communication. I've studied people. I've been a part of teams forever. I wasn't the person who hated the group project. I was the person who was trying to figure out how we were going to make the best out of the group project.
Nice.
I'm like, there is a way that we can do this. We just have to work together. So I was the person who was like, we're going to meet on Tuesday. We're going to meet for 2 hours and we're not leaving till we figure it out, everybody. But I'm bringing snacks. That's my vibe. And so I studied PR, mass comm. And then I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I thought I wanted to work in public relations until I realized how much writing I was going to have to do and how much pitching I was going to have to do, how many times they were going to tell me no. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's for me actually. And so I figured it out maybe halfway through college, but I figured I can still make this work. I was taking a lot of advertising classes because that's how they roll at UT. You kind of take a bit of both. And so I was like, I think I could maybe be interested in advertising, but it was still a very lofty concept for me. So was PR, to be honest, but I was intrigued by the history of advertising. I took a few history classes and, I was like, wow, this is fascinating. Even back to how they advertised the circus, Volkswagen, just I could go on and on, but I was like, wow, this is cool. I like this. It's shaping culture in a way that was really intriguing to me. And so I started looking around for internships. I must have done 10 internships while I was in college because I was like, I just want to figure it out. And I knew that if I figured out what I didn't want to do, it might lead me to what I really wanted to do. And I figured that out my senior year and I rolled with advertising. I really fell in love with the city of Austin. So I knew I didn't want to leave there, but I didn't know what I was going to do there. So I stuck it out. I kept applying for jobs. That was 2013 ish. And it was difficult. I always thought, okay, if I just go to college and get a degree, I'm going to get a job immediately. But what I didn't know is that the industry wasn't really set up for us to be successful, especially in 2013. So I think I was unemployed for a few months, maybe 6 months after graduation. I had all this experience and I just couldn't get my foot in the door. So I think, Rebecca, you might have been talking about this, starting out in traffic. That's exactly where I started out, in traffic with a healthcare agency at what we might call an AWA or an all white agency. But, I was in Austin and I'm thankful for that because there were a lot of like-minded people there. So it felt very welcoming to me, even though I was I think maybe the only person of color in, I don't know, 80 people agency, something like that. But I learned a lot there before I came to Saatchi, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later, but that's been my path. I spent a lot of time at that agency too before I moved back to Dallas and came to Saatchi. And I think I did a lot of observation there. I had great clients. I loved working in healthcare actually. And I just learned a lot. I was just starting out, so I didn't have the voice I think that I have now, Corey, to your point, but I watched a lot and I had some great mentors and people who were, kind of teaching me the ropes and showing me how to be a good account manager.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. We kind of want to roll into kind of talking about what it is like to be at an all white agency. I hadn't heard that term AWA before.
I made it up before the
I
call.
love it. I actually
You can
love
use
it.
Millennials have a lot of little terms like that.
True, right? Like even
Yeah.
like thinking about like a PWI, like how all of those acronyms have shown up, and just thinking about how you do represent the millennial generation and the story that you just told a little bit. My heart is broken because Corey and I are a little bit older than you, and we have been fighting this same fight and having all of the same conversations, 10, 15 years before you joined. While you found yourself not being able to get in the door, had you heard about people working to make opportunities for us? Like, had you heard anything about DEI? Had you heard about ad color? Had you heard about those things? Just curious to hear about at least the perception of what diversity is supposed to look like at an all-white agency when you first got in the space.
Yeah, I think I actually, I won't blast this agency, but I do remember when I was, I don't know, a few years in there, I remember saying, we should really take a stand on this thing of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We should say that racism is not okay. Don't we think that? Shouldn't we say that, y'all? And I remember going to the talent because we were working on social media posts for them. And I think, so many people have unfortunately been murdered by the police as of late. So I don't remember who it was at the time or even what year it was, but I remember saying, we need to say something. We need to say something. And I went to HR and she said, we can't say that. We can't do that. We don't want to be political. We don't want to, we don't want to go out and say that. We don't want to offend our clients. There were a lot of those conversations during 2020, in the summer of 2020. That same woman actually reached out to me and she said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't listen to you. I'm sorry that I didn't fight for you. This keeps happening. And I just can't get out of my mind that time you came to my office and you said that this was wrong. And you said that we should say something. And I said no. And she said, I hope you'll forgive me. I'm sorry. And I think that speaks to the progress. I don't know where she is now, but I really appreciated that. And it resonated with me for a lot of reasons, mostly just because I think the work is good. We can grow so tired of fighting, of being the only voice in the room, the only one saying there's a problem. But that just showed me that it wasn't in vain, and it might not be at that moment. Something might not happen at that moment. We might not get it right every time, but we're getting better. And I have seen that, in my time at Saatchi, the priority is on DE&I at this moment. And I think it's a pivotal time for us to kind of capitalize on that. We've been doing, I think, big work at our agency to further that cause. So I'm proud of that. It's not perfect. I think there's a lot more that we can do. And going back to your question, Rebecca, about what did I know, what were my expectations? I didn't have any. And I think part of it was because I had sat in classrooms big classrooms at UT where I still was sometimes the only Black girl in the room, or maybe there were a few of us, but there were not many. And so when I went into the agency, I can't say it shocked me. I had heard of multicultural. I knew of some of the agencies, but I didn't see a path. I was just trying to get in by any means necessary. And I knew if I could get in, I could have an impact. I had to fight a little bit to get in there. And then when I got there, I had to kind of play the role and figure it out, and work my way up. And I think that's such a industry culture thing, we have to prove ourselves. We have to work our way up. We have to put in the 60-hour weeks, the 70-hour weeks in order to, so there was still a bit of that. So I feel like I'm kind of caught in between those generations, right? Because these new kids, they're not doing that. They are not playing these games, right? Like, I listened to y'all's episode with Lewis, and hearing him talk about it was so interesting. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm somewhere in between the two generations of like, work hard, do anything it takes, and I get off at 5, So it's so interesting. And I have to respect it, right? Like, I respect it. But as the, millennial in the room, I feel like I'm straddling both worlds, and it's an interesting place to be.
It sounds like you found your way, and we have all been there where we were just trying to find our way.
Yeah.
I was really lucky in that I grew up in an advertising home. My dad was in the business for 45 years, right? So although he wasn't a creative, he was able to lay out the business for me, right? But as far as mentorship, once you got in the industry, were you able to find any mentors that looked like you?
I'd say it wasn't until 2020, 2021 that I can really say I found mentors in the industry that look like me. Now, that's not to say I didn't have people that I looked up to, the people, that I worked with that I was aware of, but true mentors, that happened, I think, after we all went into lockdown and we were desperate to connect with anyone. And Teams became an open source for finding people across our collective of agencies. And it was like, we're having events to talk about this or that, and I was like, oh, that person, I want to connect with them. And I could. And so I wouldn't call them mentors, as much as I could say that they're just other professionals, more seasoned than me, same level as me, who are just trying to make it in the industry. And the industry is really just beginning to understand how important it is to have us in the room, right? But I had several mentors as I was coming through, and they have all been white men and white women at agencies that I've been in, who I feel like they saw something in me that I didn't even know that I saw in myself, because I wasn't even sure what to look for when I got into the industry at 22. So they helped to guide me, to teach me the ropes, and really more recently to fight for me in rooms that I wasn't in. And I think they're a big part of where I am today. I think, if I'm being honest, mentorship is somewhere I could improve. I think it's something I could seek out more actively and really try to hone in on, because it is difficult, right? The work gets in the way, but I think it's so important. So I could do better.
Well, we're all doing the best that we can, especially in this strange hybrid space too. I think being someplace in the middle and trying to connect is always hard, but really interesting to just talk about, who your mentors were and the fact that they were not necessarily people of color. Thinking about what that's like being in a conference room, presenting to clients. Corey and I are consistently talking about, the power of having a unique perspective and how that can either make or break a meeting. Do you feel a responsibility in spaces where you might be the only person to speak up or to have a unique perspective, and is that welcomed?
It's way more welcome now than maybe when I started. It was really interesting because when I started, I'd say I was still one of few people of color in the room, but then I began to be exposed to our multicultural agency partners. And I felt like I was then uniquely positioned to not only speak up for our creative, but for everyone's creative, and more specifically for our multicultural agency partners, in a way that made us more unified. So I've taken maybe an even slightly different approach where, yes, I'm speaking to our creative teams, our strategy teams, or production, or whoever, and I am a bit of that voice in the room, but I'm also keenly aware that I am at the mass creative agency where we are trying to speak to a bit of everyone, right? And we have these agency partners who are uniquely positioned to speak to different markets. They're multicultural markets, and everyone's voice is important. So yeah, Saatchi pays me. That's great. But it's just as important for me to fight for their work and to uplift everyone in the room as much as I possibly can. And so I enjoy doing that because I know that it's good work. It can be challenging, I think, because I am kind of the bridge between everyone, and I want to do everyone good. But yeah, do I feel like I'm that voice in the room? Absolutely. It's a pressure that I'm honored to have. It's a privilege, I think. And I feel like I'm uniquely positioned for it, and I take it seriously for the betterment of our clients and for the betterment of the work.
That's what's up. Yeah. We're all often in those rooms. You have to be on point and alert, because if the room, I don't know, I always feel like I'm the bad guy. Because the meetings will be going really well and everybody's getting excited. I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, we can't do this. This is, yeah. So, you talked about really enjoying seeing the work manifest and everything like that. Tell me about when you don't really love something, right? So you're fighting for something, like everybody's excited, and internally you're a little lukewarm about it. Because I think this is interesting, because creatives, we get excited about something, and sometimes planning will get excited, and it's like everybody is on board, and then you looking across your account partners, and they're like, and sometimes they won't say it. So what is that like? You're putting in all these hours and all this time, and the work is taking a little bit of a turn that you just personally maybe don't like is too strong, but it's not lining up with your taste as much as maybe something else.
That's a really great, very difficult question. I tried not to be, I try to remove my bias, right?
Yeah,
I
we all have a
understand
bias.
that, yeah, we all have it. So I try to remove it as much as possible. And does the work answer the brief? That's what I'm going to ask myself first.
Right, right, right.
Does it fit within the budget? And then, I think again, it comes back to how we are communicating things to our teams. Because for me, as you know, Corey, I will joke, I will lighten the mood. I approach those more difficult conversations, I think, with humanity, right? Like, hey, can y'all tell me a little bit more about what you were thinking with this? Did y'all think about it this way? How do you think this is going to resonate with this market? Why is that nuance included there? Like, because I'm not a creative, right? And I'm not a strategist. And I don't want to be. I truly don't want to be. I think I'm exactly where I need to be. But, I think we are intended to be the voice of the clients before the clients get in the room. So I'm thinking about everything from the perspective of what are they going to say? And I'm trying to anticipate their questions. And we don't always get it right. They'll always surprise you. One day they're asking, what the heck were you thinking about this? And the next day they're like, wow, that was the best idea I've ever heard. And you're like, wait. So there's only so much anticipating that we can do as account folks. But I do think it's our job to be that voice who is pushing back in an intentional way so that when we take something to the client, it's not the first time that the creative or strategy team is hearing, hey, I don't know about this. I'd rather you hear it from me and be mad at me than come to me in a week and now we're behind on our schedule, because we're looking across the project as a whole and we're trying to, get it done as smoothly and efficiently as possible. I don't like killing ideas. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I'd also like to stick to my schedule if I can, so it's tricky. That's tricky.
As creatives, I've learned not to be sensitive about the things we create, right? I've also learned that the right criticism is very enlightening, and the wrong criticism can be a bit of a mood breaker or energy breaker, right? So the right criticism is the kind of thing, the kind of pressure test you're talking about. Like, have you guys thought about if this is the right message for this target or blah, 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 right? The wrong message is, I don't like the creative.
With no direction, no helpful information, right?
That kills morale. You know how hard we work and the hours and the weekends we give up. I think when it's communicated in that, like, I don't like it, I'm not a fan, that breaks morale.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's the importance of trust and relationship building, because then when I'm saying something that, maybe I don't deliver it correctly 100% of the time. So when I am saying something that is not spot on or not helpful, or I'm not being as clear as I can be, the creative team knows she means well. They're assuming that I have good intentions. They're not assuming that I'm out to kind of break them or hurt them, right? And I think for me, that's really the most important thing. Is I want my teams and our relationships to be so strong that little work stuff that won't break us, because we know each other so well. We have such a great, sense of unity and morale that we know each other. We know what we mean to say, and we're going to show each other a little bit of grace, because hey, it's just advertising, right?
It's true. It's true. So when you guys have sold it in and it's time to manifest the brilliant idea and you get to production, would love to hear a little bit about how your role shifts when you're on set, especially because, speaking to the producer and the creative, they're definitely in their own world. But for you as the account lead and the clients, what are you looking to achieve when you're there in that space?
This is a good question. I think it really depends on the client. I recently went on a shoot that was for a different client than my day-to-day client. They just operate so differently. Different clients expect different things. Some clients might want to be in video village behind the monitor, reviewing the footage and just kind of, chilling out, just there to say, yeah, that looks good, to ensure that we're doing what it is that we said that they were going to do. We're keeping in mind things about their products that only they might know, right? Or, taking into consideration those nuances. There's other clients who want to be with the director in the thick of it. That's more of a unique situation, I would say. And there's some clients who are like, I'm just glad to be here. You all know exactly what you're doing, and I'm just here because I'm a client, but you all are the experts and I'm just here. We love those clients, right? We love that.
Yeah.
But, there's varying degrees of, I think, levels of involvement. And so that influences what we're doing on set, because sometimes we are, shielding the creative director from a challenging client comment, right? While, they're in their zone and they're working with the teams and all of that. Sometimes it's just literally just showing support for the project and me being there to say, this is important to us. We are invested in your brand and in this work. And I'm here because you're here, and we are building that relationship. I think the role has really also changed since COVID. We all used to be on set. It used to be such a big to do. And then when we had to shut it all down in 2020 and do a lot of things virtually, it became a little bit challenging. And I think we're still figuring out what everyone's roles look like moving forward. We're hanging on to some things from the past, but we're also doing things a little bit differently. Again, levels of involvement have changed, and we're still being mindful of COVID in a lot of ways. And so attendance has decreased. We're there more in a support role, I think, and to do a little bit of that finessing with the clients. And that's cool. That's great.
Let's talk about 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan for you. What do you ultimately want to achieve in the industry? Is there a title you're chasing? Is there ultimate agency client you're chasing? Are you gonna one day, own your own agency or something? Like, Carissa, you're a star, you're a rising star. So what are you chasing?
I'm not a chaser. I try to do my job well. And to be honest, I've been blessed to be in good positions, doing my thing at the right time with the right attitude. And I've never been worried about, a title or a salary or whatever. I just know that I'm happy. I enjoy it. And I think people see that and they respect it and they appreciate it. And I can say I'm not one of those people who desires entrepreneurship. Maybe that'll change. Maybe someone will, throw stones at me for saying that. I don't know. But I love working with clients. I love doing the work. I love being in the thick of it. So in 10 years, I don't know if I'll still be at an agency, whether I'll be on the client side, whether I'll be in early retirement. Amen. On a beach somewhere. What a dream. But I do hope that I am still finding ways to bring teams together, to bring people together for a common goal. I also hope that I've brought more young people of color into the world of advertising and shown them that we can do it. We can be directors too. We can be seniors too. We can have success in this industry, and we can do it in partnership with maybe people who don't look like us. We can do it in partnership with people who do look like us, but we're going to be surrounded by really, really smart people, and we should do the things. We should work hard and we should do the things and we should have fun doing it. And we should not be afraid to, to speak up, to leave our imprint. And I hope that I am encouraging students, younger entry level folks now to do that. And I do some mentorship on the side, and I go back and I speak to people at my college, and I kind of do those things because it is important for me to pour back in. I remember the guest speakers of my day didn't look like me. So I love to show up and say, I'm an account director or client partner at Saatchi Saatchi, and I work on these brands and I do these things, and you can do it too. And I get notes and messages from a lot of girls, young girls of color, who are like, thank you so much, because I did not know we were here. And I'm like, kind of like what you said, Rebecca, that's sad, but I'm glad that you know now. So move accordingly. Let's do this. And you belong here. And I hope that I am encouraging them and inspiring them to come alongside and do the things.
Wow. That was a
That
word.
was great. I know. I'm inspired.
I
Corey and
am.
I are
I'm inspired. Like, I want to get in advertising now.
It's
Wow.
fun. You can do it. Do it. Do it. It's a blessing to be able to do it. And it's thanks to y'all, honestly, because y'all paved the way for me, for millennials like me, and I'm just trying to pass it on.
And we had a lot of boomers paving the way for us. So,
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah.
It's good to know though that you're still excited. Corey and I've talked a little bit about, the spark, especially now that we're not always together, and because COVID has changed how we work, that buzz that you would get when you would get to the building, and that every day of the culture. But today's pod, you really you helped me really remember, why we're doing it, because
Yeah.
it is fun.
It is fun. And you know what? I love that you talked about this is a lifestyle that we live, the giving up weekends and the crazy hours and the staying up late all night. It is a lifestyle, but once you get past the uneasiness of it and you kind of accept that this is just kind of how it is, and there's going to be good days and long days, and there are also going to be like some short days and fun days. You can really have a sustainable, long career in this, right? Yeah, it's possible. So, Carissa, thank you for joining and sharing. I love this episode.
Me too. Thank you, Carissa.
Thank y'all.
Woo!
So glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody out there for listening to another episode of the Invisible Soldiers podcast. Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Peace.